Thank you everyone for joining us today for the virtual club officer makeup training. Today's training is for the president, and we would like to welcome our speaker for today, the trainer. It's Dr. Michelle Peticola. Dr. Michelle Peticola is a national speaker and the former president of the Oakland Toastmasters Club Heart to Heart. As an emotional intelligence expert, she empowers leaders and change makers to stand in their authentic power so they can make a difference in the world and fulfill their life purpose. She leads workshops for organizations and groups, including the Commonwealth Club of San Francisco. In July, she led the President's Training in Santa Rosa, and in January, she co-led the training with Carolyn Douglas. She also presented at the 2018 District 57 Spring Conference. Today, she will explain what you need to know and do to create a healthy, vibrant club. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Well, thank you, Terry. I'm really excited to be sharing this. I have such a passion for this. Go ahead and turn to the first slide, or the second slide, if you would. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. When I joined Heart to Heart, I was given two manuals, which you may have all recall, the old legacy manuals, the Competent Communicator and Competent Leadership. And when I got them, I understood the Competent Communicator because that's why I joined. I wanted to become a better speaker. But what was this competent leadership business? I wasn't a leader. I figured it was just Toastmasters' way of ensuring that we took on the other roles, such as grammarian and timer. 6 months later, I became president of my club, Heart to Heart. Me, a leader. I was just stunned that I went ahead and did that. And while you're listening, I would love you to post in the chat when you became president. How long had you been in the club before you were first president of your club? Was it, years? Did you have other officer roles, or were you like me, you just sort of jumped in? I have to say that it was one of the best things I ever did. Not only did it improve my speaking, but it also improved my work. And I'm going to be sharing with you how that happened. The training objectives today are to go over what the president's role is, the responsibilities, which may take the bulk of our time, and then resources, which, is just a single page, and that will hardly take us any time at all. So let's begin with the president's role. Terry, would you move to the next slide, please?
Sorry, there we go.
So the president's role. What's a role and how does that differ from responsibility? What does that mean? I want you to think about the role of mother for a second. We know that mother has a lot of responsibilities. Maybe she cooks the food, she does the grocery shopping, she does the laundry, she takes the kids to school, she goes to PTA meetings, but her responsibilities in no way capture her role. She's kind of like the repository of all love and emotional support and so much more. And then you can look at the father role. What's he supposed to do? Well, he may be the primary provider. He fixes the things that break down in the house, but he's so much more than that too. He provides us with a guidance about integrity and responsibility and showing up in the world. So I like to think of the president's role as a little bit of mother and a little bit of father. The emotional support and the guidance and setting the boundaries and the limits. So I mentioned leadership. When I became a leader, well, I had no idea. The former president said, well, don't worry, it's the easiest role. You can delegate all your responsibilities. Well, I didn't know how to delegate. I mean, I was the people pleaser. I'm the person people delegate to. What am I supposed to do? Well, actually, according to former President Dwight D. Eisenhower, leadership is the art of getting somebody to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. That's what I learned by becoming president. Up until then, I was terrified of asking people. You know, I thought I was like manipulating them, or I was, you know, how do I get them to do it? Do I play martyr? Do I shame them? Do I embarrass them? How do I get them to help? The president's role is to inspire people. The president is like the figurehead. And as Terry put up on the slide, the president sets the tone. When you fully step into your role as the president and really take it on, your members look to you for not only guidance, but for role modeling. How you behave, they will behave. And that's what I found out. One of the first things I had to do in my club was to increase membership, because we were like in a delicate situation. Even though we were President's Distinguished, our club members didn't always come. We often had very small meetings, nobody to delegate to because everybody was busy. So I made it my mission to increase the enrollment. Even though that wasn't my job, I took it on. Because here's the other thing, presidents, you take on all the jobs. Anybody who's not fulfilling, it's your job. It's like the buck stops here. So I did that. I started enrolling people, and I'll tell you a little bit more about how I did that. And not very long afterwards, my club members started taking on that responsibility also, because I inspired them with my action. So really be aware in terms of your role that how you behave reverberates throughout the club. You set the tone. So go ahead and hit the little next point on here. So how do you understand what your tone is? Well, of course, Toastmasters provides us with the club mission. How many of you have memorized the club mission? Hands? Yes, good. I have been reading the club mission for 2 years, and finally I put it out here to help you learn what your club, the main Toastmasters Club mission is. And so I made 3 points. The first one is to create a space. See, I'm going to show you that I know this now. Create a safe and supportive space, right? So go ahead and put, well, and then 2, so that it allows the acquisition of communication and leadership skills that in turn help to develop self-confidence and self-growth. Is that right? Did I get it all?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so in addition, so that is your mission. So anything that takes away from that, that's your responsibility to make sure that it gets back in alignment with that mission. So if you have a member that's misbehaving, that's overcritical, interrupts, creates distractions, that is interfering with that mission. And that's your responsibility to make sure that that doesn't happen. So then the final thing that I wanted to put on this, you can click this again. Yes, there we are. Self-growth, I got it all. And then there's one more, and that is sometimes your club has its own unique mission. And what I would like you to do now is take a moment to see if you can identify your club's own unique mission. I'm going to share my club's unique mission. My club is a club mostly of entrepreneurs and people who want to hone their skills in creating heartfelt messages and persuasion. That is, they really want to reach their audience. So as a result, our club actually allows our members to practice what we call offers so that they can develop that skill. And giving an offer, which is asking people to take a step, to take action, is probably one of the most difficult things a speaker ever has to do. You just imagine if you were at an event where you are inviting people to take their wallets out and contribute towards some nonprofit organization. It's a little like that, only it's even worse because you're asking people to give you money. So that's our club's unique mission. But I invite you to think about what makes your club special, and how do you as president want to fulfill that mission of making that really happen. So we have clubs that, clubs that specialize in humor or specialize in storytelling. There might be a club that specializes in helping people in which English is a second language to get more comfortable in using the English language. There may be clubs that revolve around service to the community. So I want you to just take a moment to think about what your club's mission is. And is anybody, let me see if anybody's put anything in the chat. Okay. Oh, so Terry, can you just stop the slideshow for a minute, because I want to look at everybody and have a little interaction here.
Yes, let me put that up.
Thank you. Are you pinned right now, or am I showing up on your screen?
Yes.
You are, yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so how about the rest of you? Do you have any sense of what your club, how your club is special? It's really good to take a moment to ask yourself, what makes your club unique? So if nobody jumps in, I'm going to start calling people's names. Anybody?
I will talk. This is Terry, and Paul and I are in the same club in Ukiah Toastmasters. And I think what has come to make our club unique is we have people that English is not their first language.
Yes.
And even though we didn't start out as that type of club, I think that it has grown into that, which has been wonderful.
Yes.
So
empowering people in which English is not their first language is a huge mission. And you could actually, as president, and I don't know about you, but I read my mission statement every time I show up at the club as president. You could actually incorporate a mission statement in there that lets your members and any of your guests know that that's something that you really take as important. Or you treat as important. Anybody else have any ideas about what their club mission is, specific uniqueness?
I was thinking of ours. I'm also in Terry's club there, but I was thinking that we specialize in a consistent, eclectic club. There's consistency there, and I attribute that a lot to the strong leadership that's been in the past and the consistency that it's a club that stays open and available to any and all types of people. So I think we have a good mix that way.
Mm-hmm. So it's very multicultural, multi-interest. It welcomes all people from all walks of life and background.
But with a very consistent element to it. It doesn't go bad for a year or so at a time. There's just that consistency that is just very impressive.
That's really, and do you utilize that or really embody that some way, like comment on it or acknowledge it, because that would be something that you could do in your mission statement so that people take that on as this is who we are. And that could be very valuable.
I don't think we've done that intentionally. I think we do that by making reference to some of the pillars of the club, so to speak, and what an important role that they play in keeping that consistency and passing that on.
Great, great. Anybody else have some comments to make about how their club is special?
I know that Lacey wrote something in the chat room, so I'm not sure if her microphone is working, but
right.
She's in the Tenacious Talkers, which is
nice.
In Lake County. A club that has been around for a lot of years as well.
So Lacey, how do you help people, help your diverse group of people have fun? I mean, how do you, if they're diverse, how do you even know what they think are is fun? So I would love for you to respond to that.
Her
Anybody
microphone might
else?
not be working.
Well, she can go ahead and put it in the chat.
Yeah.
And I know that takes time. Anybody else? Because we can go back to the slideshow, but this is kind of nice little warmth here.
So we're on a college campus, Humboldt State University. So we do try to attract college students as well as staff and community. And
Yes.
also we're in a very rural area. For instance, we can't come down to any of these trainings. So
Right.
we're more rural even than Ukiah.
Yeah, but that's an incredible mission to be able to train college students to have a voice and have the confidence that comes with having a voice. So that, and then having a diverse group of people allows them to have that experience of diversity as well. And I don't know, maybe the college campus is diverse in the first place, but when you bring that into the speaking environment, you emphasize that even more because everybody has a chance to share who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So Lacey said they have a lot of laughter. So do you use a lot of humorous speeches in your, I've always found humorous speeches to be one of my challenges. So that's fantastic. Okay, so Terry, let's go back to the slideshow and get on with the responsibilities because there are many.
All right.
And if any of you get inspired, you can go ahead and put it in the chat and I will take a look at the chat when I get back there again. All right, so we've gone through the president's role. Now we're going to look at responsibilities. So there are 3 main areas of responsibility, and we're going to focus on each one of those. The first is the club meeting itself. That was my first experience of what my responsibility was. And I'm going to go over this, but that's basically that you are a figurehead, you stand up, you introduce the guests, you are there, people get to see you time and time again. And so you are sort of embodying the club. Then there's the executive committee, and that is the committee of officers. And in that, you are doing planning and making decisions to keep your club vital and alive and healthy. And then finally, there is the relationship with outside clubs, outside the club meeting and outside the executive meeting. That is interfacing with other levels of Toastmaster. So let's look at the club meeting first of all. So before the club meeting, I always prepare because remember what I said, the buck stops here. If somebody doesn't show up, you are basically responsible for taking over any part that is missing. Now, you don't necessarily do that. You might assign it to somebody else, but you want to be prepared. So I always review and print the agenda. I can't tell you how many times I've showed up at the meeting and the person with the agenda shows up late. I want to know what's going on. I want the map. I also bring scripts. So of course, for a long time, I brought the mission statement because I could never remember it. I also bring scripts for induction ceremonies, or if we're doing an officer's induction, I might bring a script for that so that I'm prepared, or if somebody's taking that over and they haven't brought their script, I have that. Sometimes I will bring extra evaluation forms. I often bring my old Toastmasters magazine so that if we have guests, they can peruse the magazine. And then I identify any special announcements that I need to make. And that could be, do we have certain people that need to be acknowledged, milestones that they've reached, and any kind of events that are coming up. I want to know about that as well so that I'm prepared and I have a little idea about what I have to say. So that's before the club meeting. That's before I even show up. So go ahead and turn the slide. Yes. So now you're at the club meeting. I always am there greeting the guests and the members. I'm representing the club, and it really impresses the guests when the president actually goes and meets with them and says hello. In addition, I connect them with members of the club so that they aren't sitting in their seats by themselves feeling nervous and alone. So I make that effort of matchmaking. And at the same time, before the club meeting is an opportunity. By the way, we usually do networking for about a half hour before we start our club meeting. Not every club has that much time, but our club, we do that because we only meet once a month and our meeting is very long. So I find out how our club members are doing, check in with them, see what goals they're working on, and encourage them to move forward in their pathways goals. And then I make sure that all the roles are assigned. I know this is supposed to be the VP of education that's doing it, but I'm there just checking to make sure that everything's done. I'm the leader, so I want to make sure that everything goes really smoothly. So then turn to the next slide. Next, I, of course, call the meeting to order. Actually, the Sergeant of Arms does that in our club and then invites me on the stage. The Sergeant of Arms, well, I don't need to go over that. That's a different training. I read the mission statement, or actually now I can say the mission statement. I introduce the guests. And this is key if you want, and I don't know any club that doesn't want to increase your membership or bring in new members, because all clubs usually lose from 20 to 30% of their members every year. It's just the nature of being a volunteer organization, and that people change, their lives change. So I introduce the guests because I want them to feel welcomed. I want everybody to see them and acknowledge them so that they feel part of the group. Then I go ahead and explain the events, what we're going to be doing that day, and I introduce the Toastmaster. And then we go ahead and do all our speeches, and then we have a break because, as I said, we have a long meeting, and the break is a really great time for us to check in with our guests and to find out if anybody wants to join right then and there. And we have plenty of times had people join right at the break. And then we induct new members. Sometimes this is people that we haven't had a chance to induct. We have a whole little ceremony. And that's often a selling point for people to go ahead and sign up that day, because then they get to be inducted. And it's a very powerful little ceremony. And any of you, if you want our script, I'm happy to share that with you. Go ahead and turn to the next page. So then conduct the business portion of the meeting. We don't do a lot of business in our meeting. We're pretty busy, and we have our executive committee separate. But there are sometimes things that we need to discuss, like if we have a open house coming up, or we have a speech contest coming up and we want people to volunteer, this would be part of the business portion of our meeting. Making announcements, again, events. Oftentimes we will identify the larger organizations events like a TLI, a training, or the spring conference. Last spring conference, our club brought like 8 or 10 members of our club to the spring conference, which I think was just amazing. And a lot of that had to do with encouraging them and explaining why that would be of benefit to them. Then, most important, ask the guests for their impressions. How did they like it? Now, we encourage our table topics master to try and include as many guests as we can so they can get their feet wet a little bit and experience what it's like to be on stage. I have found that when you ask the guests for their impressions, they often sell themselves. And then they realize how much they really like the meeting. Not always, but it's really important to do that. And then finally, I adjourn the meeting. Does anybody have any questions so far? I am going to ask you, after I finish this club meeting part, if you have anything to add that I haven't put in. Actually, this is, I think this is during the club meeting, and then we go to the executive. So does anybody, go ahead and put it in the chat if you have any other things that you do in your club meetings that I've missed. And while we're waiting for that, why don't you go ahead and click to the next slide. So this is outside the club meeting. You get correspondence from the world headquarters. You want to keep track of those announcements. That's your responsibility. You get correspondence that nobody else gets. And you want to communicate that to the right people. That might be your club members, you know, or it could be one of your officers. So you have to stay abreast of that. And there are some things that you actually need to do, like you have to check out some form to make sure it's right. And then you get district correspondence, which lets you know when they are offering special prizes for your open house or other kind of contests or initiatives, and you want to stay on top of that so that your club can take advantage of that. Then outside the club meeting, you're responsible for the executive committee meeting, which we're going to go into next. And finally, you oversee and manage club issues. And what I mean by that is troublesome members. I would really, you might not want to put that on this. I can't believe I'm getting a call. Sorry about that. I thought this was off. So handling club issues. I would love to hear some of your ideas about how you handle difficult members. So I'm going to share a few examples of my own. I had a member who came in the middle of a meeting. She came in late, and then she made a big grand entrance, made a lot of noise when she sat down in her seat, and then she got up, and we have a kitchen area where we have snacks, and she went over and she got herself snacks in the middle of somebody's speech. That's not okay. I needed to deal with that in a way that did not embarrass her or make her feel singled out, but in a way that sent that message out so that everybody knows that you don't do that because it's not respectful. So that was one example of how I stepped in. There was another time when I mistakenly assigned somebody to give a speech evaluation that had not been trained. Don't do that. People, it's amazing. And the first time I gave an evaluation, I was awful because I didn't understand what we call the sandwich method, which is giving positives and then giving stretch goals and then summary and ending on a positive note. That it's about inspiring and motivating. So here was this somewhat new member, and she gave an evaluation that was devastating. So I needed to talk to her, pull her aside and talk to her a little bit and coach her so that she would never make that mistake again. So those are some of the things that might come up. I would love to hear if any of you have other issues that come up that you would like some suggestions from the rest of the group about club issues. So you can put that in the chat area, and we can go to the next slide. There are my club issues. Go ahead. I forgot about that. Go ahead and hit the next button. Disruptive members, like I talked about, bad evaluations, member conflicts. Okay, so sometimes you can have conflicts between members, and how do you deal with that in a way that supports both members? How do you invite them to have a conversation? And recently we had a little bit of difficulty between two officers because one of the officers, for many, many years, she did everything. And so she went ahead and made a decision without checking within or negotiating with another officer in which it was her purview. So how do you deal with that? How do you make that work so that people are communicating? And that would be one of your responsibilities as the president, is to get people to talk and to clear the air so that you have unity with your officers. And then, and that's officers' relations and jurisdictions. So do any of you out there have any of those kind of problems in your club? Or have you had problems, and how have you solved them? You can put that in the chat unless you want to speak. So go ahead to the next slide. The executive committee meeting. We meet as a club once a month. So we don't meet every month as an executive committee, but we do it often enough to take care of the responsibilities that we have. So here are some of the things that the executive committee needs to deal with. One is the distinguished club goals. The distinguished club goals are the lifeblood of your club. It gives your club members and your club direction, what you're trying to do. It gives the motivation for people to go and give their speeches. We want to see our club as successful. So the club success plan is a plan to figure out how you're going to accomplish those goals. Does everybody know what is required in becoming a distinguished club? Of course, if you don't, it's on toastmastersinternational.org. But there are certain goals that you need to satisfy, such as attending TLIs or officers trainings. You need to get a certain number of members to renew by a certain time. You need to achieve a certain membership goal for your club. And then there are specific goals that you want your members to be achieving in order to get either 5 or 7 or 9 goals met. The success plan is a plan of action for how you're going to meet those goals. Sometimes we sit down and we say, okay, who's on the verge of fulfilling level 1, or who's on the verge of finishing? We've still got the legacy program this year. Who's working on what? And we sort of start counting our eggs ahead of time to see who is, in the funnel for getting a club goal. In fact, right now, our club is doing a speechcraft, and all our new members have been invited to that speechcraft. And if they attend every meeting of that speechcraft, and it's actually 8 sessions, it's a major commitment, they fulfill all of the requirements for level 1. So we put that into the speechcraft as part of our goal, was to try and get as many of our new members through level 1 as we could. And of course, for us, since we only meet once a month, that becomes a tall order. In addition, we have, how do we get our members to renew? In our executive committee meeting, we literally distribute the names of all the members to our different officers and ask them to contact those people. And if they're ready right then to take their credit card, put it in, sign them up right then and there. So that's one of the ways that we do it. And then if they don't want to give the credit card, we invite them to bring a check to our next meeting. And we do this in time so that we can get the renewals, as many renewals as we can. Open houses. This is another important thing. How do you get new members? Open houses are, District 57 has really, really great bonuses and support for open houses. And you want to take advantage of those because they give you the funds for nice food to invite people, and to encourage your members to bring new people in, and it can be a lot of fun. But you need to plan for that. And then incentive for inviting guests. For a number of years, we have been using an incentive, which is the opportunity to speak at Toastmaster Time TV down in, I think it's San Mateo, which for entrepreneurs is amazing because you speak at this very professional TV station and you get a recording of your speech. You don't make an offer, but you do get a professional recording of how you speak, which is very, very helpful. So we used that, the person who or people who brought in the most guests, they would be the first to get the opportunity to speak at Toastmaster Time TV. Okay, turn to the next. Thank you. You're anticipating me. So then there's the club budget. So I don't know how complicated your club budget is. Ours is simple. We hold our money. We try and get as much money as we can from the district. And of course, we ask for a little bit extra in our dues, and we use the club monies to pay for awards and to pay for special events, especially the contests. Special acknowledgement for people who go out of their way, those little certificates. That all comes out of our club budget. Then there's contest planning, and this also is part of the life cycle of a year in a club, is the contests. With our club, oh my goodness, it takes up like 3 months because we only meet once a month. So the first, we have, I guess in February, we do our one of the contests, the evaluation contest, and then in March we do the contest for inspirational speech. And then in the next month, we try to get as many members as we can to the area contest. And usually we have somebody who's going, so we support that as well. So there's a lot of work in contest planning. And part of that is qualification of members, making sure that for the international speech, they have, I believe it's 6 speeches. And then we want a contest team. And because we only meet once a month, we start working on that way ahead of time to see who's going to be the contest chair, and start to enable them to get the team that they need. We always use outside Toastmasters to come in and be our coach, or not coaches, our judges. And so any opportunity we have to meet with other clubs, we take that as an opportunity to find out if there are people who might be willing to be our coaches, our judges. And then finally, the other thing I always worked on was outside speaking opportunities. The members of my club, we want to speak all the time. We never have any problem with getting people to do their speeches. And speaking at other clubs is hugely helpful, useful for them to have a different audience and to see how other clubs run. And as I said, since we only meet once a month, there isn't enough time in our club meetings for everybody to get all their speeches in. So part of my job as president was to enable people to find outside speaking opportunities. Now, there are 2 places where that is really great. One is when they are doing their evaluation contest. We can be what they call test speakers. And so I reach out to all the district leaders to find out if any of their clubs need test speakers, and also open houses. That's another really good opportunity for our speakers. We have a reputation for having really good speakers to get outside speaking opportunities. And I have a bunch of people that I know. I have a whole Rolodex of club and club leaders that I can reach out to. And then I've passed that on to now our current president so that she can take on that responsibility. And oh my goodness, when I do that, it really boosts the level of my members. When I get them to talk at other clubs or become a test speaker, it's huge. Okay, next slide. And so also outside the club meeting, you need to attend and vote at district council meetings, which is is usually at the conference, and then at the annual business meeting. You can do that by proxy if you are not planning on attending the actual international business meeting. Go ahead to the next slide. I have a lot of stuff. I bet you didn't know there was this much going on for presidents. So the advanced club members, member achievements, advanced club member achievements. So there are, we like to push the envelope with our members. So there's OATM. Does everybody know what OATM is? It's an Outstanding Achievement Toastmasters, and it's only in District 57. They have a special form, and it does invite members, Toastmasters of your club, to reach outside, to stretch themselves, to get involved at a different level, in addition to what they do in their clubs. And so introducing them to the idea of OATM early gets them already thinking about, oh, yeah, I think I do want to be a volunteer at the area contest or at the district contest, to volunteer or to show up at another club, or maybe to participate in as a volunteer in one of the speech competitions. In addition, as I talked to you about before, becoming a test speaker. This also develops their skills and teaches them about other clubs and how other clubs are working, and exposes them to other membership. It's amazing. My own mentor in my club, she introduced me to everybody, and in a very short time, I'm sure people think I've been in Toastmasters forever, but I've actually been in it barely 3 years. And it has a lot to do with going to other clubs and showing up at the competitions. And so we really encourage our club members to do that, not only to get the OATM, but also to meet people. And then finally, interacting effectively with other organizational levels, volunteering to help out on committees, or, as I said, volunteering to help out at the competitions, or, you know, at the district conference. So turn to the, yes. So getting started. Now this may feel a little overwhelming. So actually, I'm going to stop for a moment and check in. So stop the slideshow for a moment, and I want to check in with some people. So Lacey, you mentioned that you had a very disruptive member. Oh, but she moved, so that solved problems. But did you deal with it at all? Did you have to deal with it at all? And did anybody else want to comment on any of the issues that you deal with as president, and if you want to take advantage of this great assembly of people to get some ideas for how to deal with the things that might be puzzling you? Anybody?
I will respond to Lacey's that disruptive person that she had is still within Toastmasters and still within the division. So it's just moved to another club to have the problem.
Oh dear, right. So you were in the process of writing a letter, and yes, that's a good way. Although when I had the disruptive member that I had, this is getting a little low. I hope you can still hear me. My coach, or the former president, he recommended that I write a letter about appropriate behavior at club meetings to everybody. And that way I wasn't singling her out, but I was also reminding the whole club about what is appropriate behavior in a club meeting. So that's a way in which it's less in your face. Now, if that doesn't work, if they're a little obtuse and they don't realize it's directed at them, then you might need to take the next step. But thank you, Lacey, for sharing that.
The only thing that comes to mind in our club is I think that we just met this morning and we had about 4 or 5 people come in relatively late. And there's a bit of a pattern there with a couple particularly that tend to come in late. The other one would be the way that we assign roles is there a monthly sheet comes out with roles for the whole month that you have. And the idea is if you can't make it, that's not a problem, but just make sure you have a substitute. And we haven't got a good club mentality that you just don't show. That happens too often, I would say, but something I think that we're trying to keep working at.
That's a really, really important problem. And we struggle with that as well. What we have created is a Google listserv, which has all the members of the club on one list. Because as Toastmasters, we're not supposed to give out the emails of other members unless they've given us permission. So we don't do that. But we have a listserv where all the emails are in there, but they aren't shared. And so any member can send a message out to the whole club and say, oh, something came up. I'm not going to be able to reach out. I'm not going to be able to do my role. Would somebody be willing to volunteer and jump in?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we're handling it. And yes, like you, we go ahead and assign people. And for example, I just had that today. One of the members, he did use the email message, but our club is meeting tomorrow. Asking people the day before is not the best way. So I actually sent him an email and said, you need to reach out to people directly. And then, of course, after I said that, I realized that, of course, they don't have their phone numbers. So that doesn't help. And they probably don't have their email addresses either. So that was probably dumb on my part. But that's what I would do is when I need to have somebody fill in for me, I find that the phone call is more powerful and more effective than just an email. But at least that's an effort, that he's taking. Right. And he did take it. So that's better than not doing anything at all. So that's a step in the right direction. And let's see.
And Michelle, I'm going to be your timekeeper here.
Yes, so we're running out of time. So let's go back and finish up the slides, and then if there's any more comments, we can address them. I think I only have like maybe 2 more slides. So let's go back to the slideshow. All right, getting started.
Oops, I'm sorry.
Getting started, those of you who this is the first time, and I don't know if any of you this is the first time, you may be like more senior than me in terms of being a president. You do want to attend the district-sponsored club officers training program. And I assume that you all know that they are going to be doing a train the trainer for officers. That is how you can be a trainer for the officers' roles yourself in October. I think it's October 12th, or it's a Saturday in October. Then also, so that would be a really great training. You'd really get to another level in terms of, because what's the best way to learn your role but then to train somebody else? Boy, have I learned a lot about my role. So then read materials. There are gobs of materials, and I've put them on the last slide. Meet with the outgoing executive committee. In my case, that wasn't a problem. The outgoing executive committee was the incoming executive committee for a number of years, so that was not an issue. Meet with the outgoing president, and I have on many occasions reached out to him for advice because he is an awesome Toastmaster. And then meet with the current executive committee. And we've already had 2 executive committee meetings since the turn of the new year to identify, all the things that I talked about in the executive committee responsibilities. So that's how you get started, and just take it a step at a time. and learn as you go along and step into that role and enjoy, just really enjoy the experience. So in summary, whoops, go back one. We always want to summarize. President's role: uphold your club's mission. That and embody the club mission and share that. Responsibilities: be prepared to step into any role. Be prepared to really be there and present at every meeting. After I became president, I never missed a meeting unless I was at the spring conference. And then resources: Google is your friend. There is tons of information. And I find that it's often faster to Google it than to go to Toastmasters International, because it will pick up the page right for you. And sometimes you get hits on other clubs that have posted things that are great. So enjoy that. Final slide. Oops. Where was the resources? Was that
It was before.
Oh, sorry. So here, right, here's the resources. Sorry. So this is all on Toastmasters International. Are you going to get, maybe you can take a quick screenshot of this and hold it if you want to get that so that you can look up these links. Now they don't hand out the club leadership handbook anymore. It's all online. But it's nice to know what the links are so that you can go quickly to where you need to find this material. Pathways Navigator is really a really helpful resource, not only for you understanding pathways, but for understanding how the clubs go overall. And then Speechcraft. I don't know if this has been updated for Pathways yet. I am doing a Speechcraft, and the materials I have right now is all legacy system. And I've actually upgraded it for our Speechcraft so that we are teaching people Pathways, the first level in Pathways. And Club Constitution, I haven't even looked at that, but it would probably be a good idea to do that. Of course, the success plan, they have some really good ideas for that. And I think our district came out with a questionnaire that can really get you moving forward in your club success plan. And that's it. You can go ahead and stop the slideshow. I think we've covered it all. We have like 1 minute. If anybody has any final, I would say, do you have any final comments or takeaways? To go ahead and post it in the chat, or you could stop the slideshow and we can open up the lines for anybody who wants to say anything before we close.
Michelle, is the PowerPoint available?
Well, Terry has it, so she could certainly send it out to all of you.
I can do that.
And
Great.
I'm sure that if you want to get the recording and listen to the recording again, that's also available, because what's in the PowerPoint is not, of course, everything that I said. Anybody else have questions or comments? Well, thank you all for being here and making this so much more juicy, energizing training than it would have been if I was just talking to Terry. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle. We really appreciate it. And again, as Michelle was saying, this has been recorded, and it's recorded to the cloud, and it will be uploaded to District 57, and I will get that information to you. But in the meantime, if you would like a copy of just the slides, let me know. Otherwise, you'll get the whole thing available soon.
Okay, thank you, Terry, so much. You were a great moderator, and you were great with the slides.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle. Appreciate everything.